Welcome back to the Doing Good podcast, where we celebrate volunteers, their stories, organizations, and passion for making a difference. I'm Megan McInnis, your host for this episode, and I'm glad you're here with us. After listening, we encourage you to share this volunteer story to hopefully educate or even inspire someone to act. Now, on to celebrating those who are doing good. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Doing Good podcast. I am one of your hosts, Megan McInnis, and I am happy that you have chosen to join us today. So today I am thrilled to be able to interview Miss Karen Chambers. She is a volunteer in Tennessee. Karen, would you share with us a little bit about yourself? Like, are you a mother? A little bit about where you live, that sort of information, so we know who we're listening to today?
Sure. Hi, Megan. I'm Karen Chambers, and thank you so much for having me today. I am a mother, a wife. I've been married for 45 years to my husband, Steve. We live in Franklin, Tennessee, and we have 2 adult children. They're both married. Our son and daughter-in-law live in Franklin, and they have 3 little girls. And our daughter and son-in-law live in Indianapolis, and they have 4 little boys, and they just welcomed a little girl. So we are
Oh,
very blessed. Yeah, we have 8 grandchildren.
congratulations.
Cute. Yeah, it's pretty
Wow. What a busy life.
yes,
That is
very.
great. That is great. Yes. So now how is it you can fit in volunteering with all of this family you have going on? Is this something you've always done?
I have always wanted to volunteer in some way and have most of probably my adult life. To me, volunteering is one of those things that is just outside of yourself. So we all have jobs, we have families, but then to volunteer is just to kind of stretch yourself. And my volunteering for bearing others' burdens came 42 years ago. So 42 years ago, I had a miscarriage. I didn't know anyone that had had one. I didn't have any support. And honestly, it was such a tough time. My sister was pregnant. We were both due the same month. So I lost my child, and I felt like I needed to still be happy for her, but devastated for me. So fast forward a lot of years, and I've always loved people. I I have an empathetic personality, and so I feel like there's times where you could just kind of come up close to people, but in that world, I didn't know how to do it. So it's taken a long time. God's led me a lot of different directions, but really the crux of bearing others' burdens was the miscarriage and infant loss piece.
Well, I am so sorry for your loss
Thank you.
and everybody's loss, really. I mean, because each person can make such a difference.
Right? Exactly.
So, did you ever volunteer for anything beforehand?
Before bearing others' burdens?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Like, what kinds of things did you do?
Well, I volunteered a lot with different church activities because we grew up in the church and there were always things to do there. Whether you were working with the teens, I have volunteered in nurseries forever. But then on top of that, then in the different places that I worked, we did volunteer events. So whether or not you packed food, which we did that several times where, you would take food to shelters and that type of thing. Actually working in shelters as a volunteer um, through a mission group, feeding different people. I also volunteered in a pantry, a church pantry to pass out food. So all of my volunteer work has been around needs of either food or loss. Those have been the big things that have really touched my heart.
And isn't hindsight 2020?
Yes.
And so here you are 42 years later, and you founded the organization, the 501c3 nonprofit Bearing Others' Burdens. Is that right?
That is correct.
Great. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the organization does and what its purpose is?
Sure. Bearing Others' Burdens donates care and comfort bags to people that are going through cancer treatment, miscarriage, infant loss, and also bereavement of other ages. So, really, even the miscarriages are considered a bereavement, but we do categorize them, by ages. So, cancer, the majority of our bags that have been donated for cancer have gone to Vanderbilt here in the Nashville area. We've donated probably about 1,200 bags to them. So Vanderbilt gives our bags to anyone that's having a transplant, and then other patients that are going through chemo or radiation treatment where one of the nurses just feels like they need an extra boost because they're scared or they're overwhelmed. And our bags have all of the things that you would need when you're doing your treatment. None of the medical things, but a pillow and a neck pillow. It also has a blanket. There's a mug with tea and cookies and a hat for when you lose your hair. And then things to keep your hands busy. So a coloring book, a journal, a puzzle book, and then there's a pouch that has colored pencils, pencil sharpener, chapstick, and also a pen and a pencil. And there's socks because it's all about comfort. You can't truly take somebody else's burden away from them. We all walk our journeys, but you can come alongside someone and you can encourage them and let them know that they are seen, they are loved, their story matters, they're known. In the case of bereavement, we can let them know that their loved one's name mattered. So the difference in those bags is that we make what we call a memory square. So it's a little quilt square and it has a tree and it has a saying and a bench. So it says, even though we couldn't keep you, you will be in our hearts forever. And then it has the loved one's name, date of birth, date of death. And then there's a blanket with their name embroidered. So all of the things like that are made by us. So we have a couple of other volunteers that make the bags, do all of the embroidery. And our goal is really to give somebody something beautiful, something that will help them remember their loved one, or in the case of cancer, something that just makes them feel loved.
And have you been able to experience a recipient of the bag yet? Like, or is it so distant where since you partner with hospitals, they are the ones who experience that?
We have. And so I've given bags to people before. And if it's somebody that it's actually a little bit different. So my husband's sister had a transplant. And so we sent her a bag. And her reaction was, it was kind of like a Mary Poppins bag. She just kept pulling things out and she couldn't believe how many wonderful things were in there. And that's really exciting. But the ones that are the most joy for me is when I hear from people that say, you didn't even know me, and I got all of this. Somebody that didn't know me sent me something that really touched me and allowed me. A lot of times on these babies, moms didn't have anything. So you don't have, a lot of times you haven't even had the shower yet. So you don't have those things. You don't have anything with your child's name on it. And then all of a sudden you do. And so that has been really awesome to be able to provide those.
I know it's been awesome, and I can't imagine what's going on in the head and heart of the recipient. But how does that affect you?
Well, in several ways. First of all, it is, and I tell people this, and it's not just a saying, it actually is an honor to do this for somebody. The second thing is, it's really hard because I read these obituaries, I read these stories, and I feel that. So there's that piece of it. And sometimes I just have to take a deep breath and remember that people are walking these journeys, whether we step into them or not. So where we can step into them, then we have the chance to encourage, and that part encourages me. So we live in our work is in an area that's sad, and yet there's been so many joys from it, both in meeting people and, hearing from them.
So good. Can you tell us about one or two?
Sure. So there's this lady, I met her at Vanderbilt. Her name is Deborah. She wouldn't care if I said that. And she contacted me and she contacted me 5 times in one day. I need to know where to get the socks. My husband got socks and he loved the socks. So I let her know where to get the socks. Since that day, I have heard from her every day. And recently, about a month ago, we were even invited to a funeral of one of her family members. We've become friends. So a bag to somebody that I would have never met, and we're friends. We've been friends for months, and we share pictures of family and those types of things. There was another one where I was getting my eyes checked after cataract surgery, and a young man in there requested a bag for his mom and his aunts because they lost two parents in 1 year.
Oh,
So we gave him a bag also. He didn't know he was going to get one, but we gave him one too. So I went back to have my eyes checked, and I saw Preston, and he's like, "So can we hug?" I'm like, "Yes, we can hug." So there's a lot of really cool moments in in the middle of it all.
clearly this takes a big heart. Did you have any education to prepare you for this? I know you shared your experience of a miscarriage, but I find that hard to believe that prepares you to carry all of this, right? Of others' burdens.
I think that just living life has prepared me for it. So every family, Megan, has had losses. You know, every every family's lost a parent or a grandparent. I mean, you live long enough and you've lost somebody. God has given me, since I was a child, a personality to care very deeply about those things. Sometimes I honestly wish it wasn't as deep because it's hard, but God has given me that. And so that's been part of the preparation. Another part of the preparation is whenever something came up that I could help with, even before our nonprofit, I wanted to help. And I don't do it by myself. My husband does a lot of this, and together as a married couple, we did everything we could to help people when a need came up. And our son helps make our bags, and he's of the same kind of a personality. So I think even though I can't pinpoint other than my miscarriage, even though I can't pinpoint an exact moment, I think God has been preparing me my whole life for the empathetic part of this journey.
It's not surprising. Good, good. Well, and obviously, God plays a big role in your life and in the life of the nonprofit. Can you tell us maybe more about that, or is it a faith-based nonprofit?
It is. It is a faith-based nonprofit, but it's also like when we go to Vanderbilt, we don't put some of the faith-based items in there because they are an organization where you cannot do that. But what we really want people to know is you're not by yourself. You're seen. Your story matters. You matter. In the world where everything is so much technology right now, and people don't get in community as much as they used to. People are lonely. They're they're lonely. They are looking for someone to understand what they're going through. And a big part of our ministry is that, just saying, "Hey, somebody is here for you. We're here for you."
Has God always been a part of your life? Or was that a change maybe when you had the miscarriage?
I was raised in a preacher's home, but it wasn't always my journey like it is now. Honestly, and I feel like I could say this because it's part of my story, and even though my father is a preacher, I told him this part not too long ago, and I'm in my 60s, and I felt guilty about telling him this, and when I told him, he's like, "That's your story, you should tell people that." But when I had my miscarriage, we weren't at home. We were at my husband's elderly grandparents' home, and
Hmm.
it's like, "Okay, so what do you do?" You know? And they didn't know what was going on. And my husband was trying to keep me from being too sad. And I'm like, then I'm going to go get drunk. I had never even had anything to drink in my life. I grew up in a preacher's home. So we, so we went bowling and, I did. I, I didn't bowl very good, but I got, but
Don't worry about the straight line.
right. So, exactly. But here's what I know about grief. It comes out in so many different ways for people. And everybody needs to be able to share their grief. Otherwise, it's internal. And so people learn how to cope. They learn how to deal with their grief, whether it's internal or external. And that's what I was, and stuffed it. As far as your question about has faith always been a part of it? Yes, on the peripheral a lot of the time, but for quite a few years now, a very personal faith, and of a faith that has watched God lead me on a journey. Not always a fun journey, but a journey. I just want to share encouragement and love with people, and let them know there's somebody there for them.
And you know what I appreciate too that you're not saying is that it'll be okay,
Oh gosh, no. No.
right? No, I appreciate how you approach it. And two, and grief goes in waves and over
Yes.
time.
Yes.
How does grief differ from the different categories of people you're serving? I would think it'd be sort of a challenge to figure out how to serve each person where they are at that stage in their grief.
My sister and brother-in-law just celebrated, I guess you would say, the anniversary of the death of their adult son. He died 12 years ago. So I know that June the 30th every year, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, those are all days that, even though there's wonderful memories of my nephew, there's also hard times. So you kind of walk alongside that and help remember. And then there are some people that we've run into that it's easier for them to move on. My goal is never to try to tell anyone how to handle their grief, and also to not give any kind of pat answers. A lot of things have been said to people who are grieving, probably well meaning intentions, but it comes out wrong. So you don't tell somebody just things like you said, "It'll be okay."
Mm-hmm.
You don't tell
Mm-mm.
somebody, "Well, you'll have another child." Well, we don't know those things. So there are things that people say that they shouldn't. So I just pray that God gives me the right words when I talk to somebody, and that you open your mouth and speak love, kindness. And if you can't, that you just stand there with them silently and just be there. You don't really have to have words.
That's beautiful. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that over the years. And especially in this world of AI and technology and all of that taking over our lives, some of us don't know what to do. And it may feel uncomfortable with, I'll say, having the proximity of somebody else, whether a stranger or a friend, being that close to us and just being supportive and being there. Because what do you do with that? but, but yeah, that's a beautiful thing to point out. So, do you have other volunteers serving alongside you who can provide these services to others?
There are 4 of us that do this all the time, and we're all volunteers. But then also, there are volunteers at our church that cut our lining. Well, they don't cut our linings. I cut our linings, they sew them. Because we make our bags. And so there's a couple of volunteers that sew all of the linings and then they're ready to go in the bags. We've also had Publix and Pella Windows and also a church group that packed our mugs and our pouches. So we just had some events where they all came together and we just do a big packing party.
That's great. That's wonderful. So, if someone was interested in supporting you, volunteering with you, doing something to support the
Mhm.
nonprofit itself, what do they do? How can they contact you or it?
Well, on our website, bearingothersburdens.com, there is a contact us. We are in the process of redoing the website right now, and there's going to be a volunteer page. But just through the contact option, people can request to do some volunteer work. The biggest thing that helps us is when people volunteer to do the packings because bags themselves are being made. Also, we've had people that have donated items, whether it's the socks or the pencils or the pens, that type of a thing. So we've had volunteers that help with that also, which is always wonderful.
If someone is, say, in a different part of the country, are
Mhm.
they still able to either support you or maybe be a branch for you somehow in another part of the country?
Our bags have been to all 50 states.
Wow.
It's not just Tennessee. So my goal with Megan was to send out 15 bags, and we're at about 2,500 right now in a little over 3 years. So it's all 50 states. There's been one international in all 50 states. So anyone can request a bag. And obviously, there are costs associated with all of these things. So if people want to donate in kind items or, whatever, that's always appreciated also.
Well, that just touches my heart. Forget the goal of 15. Go for the 2,500,000. Yeah, you'll be racking those up. You'll be increasing exponentially again soon, I'm sure. Well, you have represented the organization extraordinarily well, and I'm so impressed because as a volunteer, you founded a nonprofit which serves so many others in such a meaningful way. And I think a lot of people forget sometimes that the nonprofits they're looking at, in the four walls with the fancy logo and the big event, that those started with just a volunteer or
Right.
maybe two.
Right.
Right. And the process of growing and taking each step along the way is forgotten a lot or not considered
Right.
really. Um, and I just applaud you for not only having this in your heart and the empathy to care to be that not sounding board but to be that shoulder to cry on or just to be that person to be there with them and to support them however they need it. I applaud you for that. And I think a lot of people can also use that empathetic side of themselves to serve others in ways that may not have considered before. Definitely, Karen Chambers, your story matters. You matter. And we thank you so much for sharing your story with us through the Doing Good podcast.
Thank you, Megan.